Hello and welcome to the EU AI Act podcast, your go-to resource for understanding the European Union's legislation on artificial intelligence. I'm your host, Mark Kelly, and I'll be your guide through this intricate landscape of AI regulations that could shape the future of technology in Europe and beyond. In each episode, we'll delve into the EU AI Act, exploring its purpose, implications, and the roles of those involved. From AI developers to deployers, our mission is to demystify how this groundbreaking regulation impacts everything from high-risk AI systems to everyday applications that influence both the physical and virtual realms. Whether you're a developer, deployer, or simply curious about the future AI, this podcast will equip you with the insights and knowledge needed to navigate the ever-evolving world of AI regulations. Stay tuned as we explore these topics and more, helping you to stay informed and ahead in the rapidly changing field of artificial intelligence. Don't forget to subscribe to the EU AI Act podcast on your favourite streaming platform to never miss an episode. Hello everyone and welcome to our podcast today, and we are speaking about the EU AI Act as always. And if you don't know, we had the final text that was published a couple of weeks back, and it's closing up to August the 1st, where the EU AI Act will become law, with a series of different milestones coming down the track. And I'm very, very happy to welcome Luana to the show, Luana Lo Piccolo. And Luana is a legal and policy expert on digital tech and AI, and we're really, really happy to have Luana here on the show today. Luana, could you give me a brief overview just about your background, how you got into this world of technology, business, and legal?
Thank you so much, Mark. I'm very glad to be here with you today. I have been working on digital tech and AI in the past 14 years from a legal compliance perspective, but also policy and regulatory. And my purpose has always been to make sure that we use technology for good and as a beneficial tool for us rather than, let him become a harmful master. And I really promote technology, and I really do believe that it could serve us for so many things. And this is why, my purpose has always been to guide policymakers first to draft good regulations. And regulation is just one of the steps to deliver, to use AI responsibly. And at the same time, now I'm helping the industry to be compliant with the text, but also to use AI responsibly, as I was saying before. So in this picture, in this scenario, I look at the regulation as clear guidelines. Of course, when regulation is drafting in a proper manner, and I do believe that the AI Act as good things in the text. Of course, is a political agreement, so the text cannot be perfect. We're going to see during the enforcement phase, as Bismarck said, laws like sausages, you don't want to know how they have been made. But if they're written properly, I think that they can be clear guidelines for the industry to be, responsible.
Yeah, and now we're out of that kind of strategy loop, and we're getting into that execution, and we're coming up with the practicalities and the implications for businesses trying to get our head around the text. And this is like a moving platform. With the final text, a lot of people are now going through it. They're seeing how it can actually put into place. And some people are talking about kind of working off different frameworks to help support it, like the NIST framework gets recognized quite a bit as a good place to start. But the advice I've been seeing is that companies should now start to have an audit trail in terms of how they're making their decisions, have very, very clear line of thought. And this is really for a human-centric, privacy by design framework that people will feel more trust in using products or services that have AI in them. When you're talking to businesses and you're giving advice to them, what type of best foot forward are you giving them?
Well, of course, that in order you can have the best, the coolest, technology ever, but if you don't know how to communicate it and how to plan and draft the good strategy, growth strategy, you won't succeed. So the first advice that I give industry is always, using regulation, the AI Act, but also other regulations, because now we're talking about the AI Act, but we have GDPR, we have DSA, DMA, that even if they are not like specifically on AI, they touch AI somehow. And of course, it's up to the sector. So if it's the financial sector, you're going to have a look at the NIS, you're going to have a look at the DORA, and like other regulations, based on the country where like the industry is based. And so the first advice and what I normally do is encouraging them to draft a tailored, responsible framework on AI. And a part of it, as I was telling you before, is about compliance, but it's also about managing, data responsibly, information asymmetries. It's about investing in digital literacy for employees, and so on. So the very, very first step is, and that's where like the UI Act can help, is about mapping and identifying the AI uses according to the risks the AI application that each company may use, and categorize them based on the risk approach that the AI Act establishes. So starting from this, of course, the second step will be, implementing practices in order to measure the risks that these, applications may pose. And of course, I'm referring primarily to high risk AI users. Consider that, the unacceptable risks, that one, they cannot use it. Of course, they're going to be banned under the UI Act. And the limited risks, of course, they require other requirements. So, starting from identifying and mapping priorities and building a growth strategies based on this. By implementing on one side, mitigation, measures, being sure that they can be compliant with the requirements established by the UI Act. So all the transparency, accountability requirement, keeping documentation, training, improving awareness and also skills within, the industry itself, the company itself, by training employees, as I was telling you before. Monitoring, making sure that there are monitoring processes, ongoing monitoring and audits programs, and building according to this an internal governance, but at the same time also be in contact with the other stakeholders, that they can be other companies, also the institutions. For instance, the AI Pact that was launched, the draft of the AI Pact was launched yesterday by the Commission. It could be a very, very useful test in order to make sure that they're going to be ready. The industry is going to be ready when they're going to be called to be compliant. And the fast compliance with the prohibited system is going to be the 2nd February the 2nd, 2025. So in 6 months, in a little bit more than 6 months. So they need to be ready now. They need to, and also delivering, sharing best practices. So encouraging, the compliance, or the drafting of good follow-up. This can be beneficial. So I think that the industry should, move now.
So you're saying, okay, have a framework, have a kind of a clear line of sight about how the AI Act is going to impact your business and how you're going to adhere to it. But most importantly, have a clear policy around for your different stakeholders within the business. So these could be your employees, or they could be some of your vendors or buyers, and understanding which type of relationship you have and they have within this regulation. And as you said, this is part of other standards and frameworks and GDPR. There's different security compliance. So this is just one of a multitude of different laws and regulations that you need to adhere to, but you need to have a kind of a clear line of sight and thought process about how you're actually tracking all your data, your information, and your processes and procedures.
Correct. And if I may add something more, also, referring to expert, because I always say that we live in the era of artificial confusion more than artificial intelligence, where everyone, became suddenly an expert, but not have everybody, not just for malicious intentions, but there are very like complex issues. They don't like quite understand how these new technologies work, but they also at the same time they don't have like a very good clarity about like the norms of the various like regulations. So this is super important that they refer like to experts, that they have like a clear vision, that they understand very well, and that they communicate that they are going to deliver, they're going to be compliant. This is why like on one side the AI Pact is good for visibility, it's good for reputation, more the visibility, and on the other side, communicate that for a company, if it communicates well, that it's compliant and it's responsible on the use of AI. Of course, this will be like an attractions for clients, for providers, for partners, but also for talents, for potential new employees. So I think that this is key, having like a good understanding, especially about like the risks, what they can do and what they cannot do, and the leverage, like all the opportunities that they can get. So this is like this is fundamental. I would say this is like the very first thing that they must do, and they must do it now.
Yeah, because August 1st will come around very, very quickly. And then we have up until February to help with that literacy for employees to understand what type of AI systems they're working with, or a policy as a foundation the company should have to say, this is our policy in terms of how we use AI, this is the services that we offer externally, or maybe if we're using these products ourselves internally, there has to be some kind of benchmark as well. And then there's going to be different with the EU Pact, different standards that people will actually need to understand to say, well, actually the compliance or the governance is on you, or your responsibility is on this aspect. And then people start to feel more closure and ownership about what they need to do, rather than feeling like there's some ambiguity. And I think there is naturally going to be some ambiguity with this act because it's so embryonic, it's still moving, the standards are still being created.
Yeah, especially because consider that, like for several reasons, the AI Act was adopted. The political agreement was reached last December, because they wanted like to reach under the Spanish presidency, and also because the white semester for the EU elections was going to start in January. So a lot of things were incompleted, and it always happens with with regulations. It's always, especially with regulations in digital matters, where it's very hard to find the balance between promoting innovation and safeguarding human rights. So I think that specifically, for these regulations, it would be, it's even like more relevant. It's even like we can highlight this, because a lot of things would be assessed somehow by the UI office, by every member state. So it's going to be like an ongoing process. And of course, at the same time, technology is evolving like very, very, very rapidly. So it's going to be, I suppose and I suspect that it will be like an ongoing process, even like for the compliance and for the enforcement phase.
Yeah. So the advice that you're saying is, set out a framework, try to have a clear line of sight, take your company employees and your stakeholders on this journey, adhere to what's being asked of you, but then also try to put in best practices yourself on the basis that new tasks will be given to you. So be proactive in trying to put clear line of sight of what you need to bring in terms of a governance perspective as well. And as rightly said at the start of the episode, sometimes technology can get in the way where people are just confused and they don't necessarily know what they need to do, but putting a good assumption and a clear line of thoughts about how you've approached this will be good, particularly for an audit.
Yeah, and also, when I talk to the industry, there are like a few companies there, they say like, but we don't have a framework. We know like all there is the good manners, like that we need to map, we need to measure, manage and govern. So we need like the main structure, but we don't have it internally. So I always like suggest them to look at the regulation on AI as like a possibility and opportunity to like implement and draft like an internal governance and an internal framework that you can use for everything. I mean, once you have the framework, of course, then you need to adapt it case by case. But once you know your sector, you know like all the use cases that you normally have. So having this framework actually it forces a company to like do all the hard work now, but like having a lot of advantage and benefits in the medium long run. Having a framework from a strategic perspective is essential if you want to plan like your growth and in the long run. So I always look at it like as an opportunity. And again, compliance, regulation is just one of the steps, it's just one of the tools in order to be responsible. And being responsible, delivery like, like a responsible use of AI is beneficial, not just like because replies to an imperative, need, an ethical imperative, I must say maybe, but also because it's a business, a competitive advantage for reputation, for attractions, like of clients and talents, for planning a good strategic growth, and so on. So I think that the industry should look from a different perspective.
Luana Lo Piccolo, thank you very much for being a guest on the EU AI Act podcast today.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure anytime.
If you're as passionate about the intersection of AI and regulation as we are, then you'll want to dive deeper. That's why I'm excited to introduce the EU AI Act online course. This comprehensive course is designed to arm you with a thorough understanding of the EU AI Act and its implications across industries. Whether you're an attorney, a compliance officer, a developer, an executive, or a regulator, this course is everything you need to navigate the complexities of AI regulations. Over 3 hours of on-demand video and 6 detailed articles awaits, all accessible forever on any device, be it your phone, tablet, or TV. Enroll today to secure unlimited access and take the first steps towards mastering the intricacies of AI regulation. Just visit courses-ai.com to get started and stay ahead of the curve and understand the impact and lead with confidence in the age of AI. Don't miss out, your deep dive into the EU AI Act starts here.